So that way we can make a little video out of this and you can view it at another date. Let me minimize that. Okay. So lichens found on the South Coast. All right, so what we're going to talk about tonight, we're going to talk a little bit about lichen biology, what are lichen, what do they grow on, and how we categorize them. And then we'll go into different types of crustose lichens, foliose lichens, and fruticose lichens. So what is a lichen? A lichen is a symbiotic relationship between fungi and an algae or cyanobacteria. So the fungi provides the shelter or the structure, while the algae or cyanobacteria provides the food. So they work together to live. The fungi can't create the food, but the algae does, but the algae can't create the shelter, so it's a win-win for both of them. Trevor Goward, a North American lichenologist, has once described lichens as a fungi that has discovered agriculture. So basically, the fungi is taking advantage of the algae cyanobacteria. Yeah. And then you can see the little cute comic on the right here, Alice, algae and Freddy fungi, and how their romantic relationship and how they became a lichen and liken one another.
That's cute.
Yeah. So where do lichens grow? Basically everywhere. They grow on rocks, on cliff, boulders, taluses, pebbles, you name it. They also grow on the ground, whether it's nice soil or sandy, mossy, or even on decomposing logs. Lichens also grow on trees, which as you all know, because the South Coast is covered in lichen right now, thanks to dead and dying trees. So the lichens are decomposers, and they tend to grow on trees that are already sick or dying. They don't actually kill the tree.
Why is that?
You can see some lichen growing on the ground. We got some trumpet lichen right here in this picture. So lichen is categorized in three ways, and it's by their growth form. So you have the crustose, foliose, and fruticose forms. Crustose is lichen that looks like a scab on the substrate. So it grows flat against the substrate. It doesn't really peel off that much. So it's just going to be flat against it. It'll look like spray paint. And you can find it growing on rocks and trees. Folio, which folio, or foli is Latin for leaf. So folios, these are lichens that look like leaves. So they have that leafy growth appearance with the many lobes, and they're curly. They can be curly as well because the lobes aren't attached to anything, these leafy lobes, so they tend to curl, which is, and they have indents and such that leaves have. Fruticose, if we turn this picture on the left upside down, you would think that lichen right there was a very branchy shrub. So fruticose lichens are lichens that look like a shrub or a branch in their growth pattern. Let's talk about some crustose lichens that we find here on the South Coast. Common gold speck is one that you can find. This small yellow crustose lichen grows in these crowded clusters. They grow on granite rock in the full sun. This lichen is very common. Unfortunately, it's not at Destruction Brook Woods that I could tell on my walk, but I know I have seen it growing on granite here. I recommend checking the old granite pits. The one that's off the top of my head is our Fonts Reserve, which is next to Shingle Island River Reserve. There's a small granite hole that people once, or a small granite quarry where they took the granite, but there's some granite blocks there still left, and I'm pretty sure if we go there we can find this common gold speck. This yellow map lichen, while I can't say I've seen it, this one is pretty cool. So scientists use this yellow map lichen to date geological events, because this lichen can grow very old. So it's common to find them, or the average lifespan that people tend to find them is 1,000 years old. And there's been some found in Sweden that are 4,000 years old. Or
Wow.
yeah, so these lichens, because they grow for so long, geologists can use them to date times when the glaciers have either receded or come down. So it's pretty cool. I'm hoping to find this so that way I can see it in person, but if anyone sees this while out on their inspections, let me know. It grows on silicous rocks, and it's this yellowish green crustose lichen that is very shiny, and then has these tiny black dots along the margins, and it has these cracks, so it looks a lot like the desert or a dry mud flat, but it's yellow with black dots. Powdery gold speck, we do find this often on the trees here. This crustose lichen will grow on any bark. It forms these small patches, and it likes to grow with other lichens. So you might find it growing with some, as you can see in this photo, it looks like there's fluffy gold dust also growing with it. You find this a lot on maples and aspen, and I couldn't find any yesterday at Destruction Brook Woods, but I know it's there. I just haven't found it. I do see it more often in the warmer months. This lichen here is the fluffy dust lichen. Make note of it, because this one you do see everywhere here in the South Coast. It grows on trees and shaded rocks. It's kind of like this pale mint dust that is like on the tree. And this is all over Destruction Brook Woods, and tomorrow I'll show you examples of it growing on trees and on rocks. And if you go outside your yard, step out tomorrow, I'm sure you'll be able to find it on at least a tree or one of the rocks near your house. Whitewash lichen, this is another very common lichen that you can find here on the South Coast. So this grows on barks of deciduous trees, but it prefers red maples and northern white cedars. So the whitewash lichen is very smooth white, and it's just very flush against the surface. Like you can't really feel any difference from it. So it's kind of like someone put a bunch of baby powder or legit spray paints, which I know sometimes I've seen it in the woods and thought, oh no, someone spray painted the tree, but it's actually this whitewash lichen. Now we're going to move on from the crusto scab looking lichens and go to the foliose lichens and look at these. So smooth rock tripe is found throughout Destruction Brook Woods at the on the Blue Trail there in Happy Valley on the rock outcrops. I've also noticed it today. It's growing on the stone wall along Fisher Road as well. This lichen is pretty cool. So its scientific name is umbilicus because it is attached to the substrate in the center of these leafy, these brown, pale brown leafy or reddish brown leafy lobes. So it's attached in the middle to the substrate, and that attachment is called umbilicus. So, so you can kind of think of these tripe lichens as, if it's easy to remember, they're kind of attached like umbilical cord that a child is attached to the placenta. So like I said, it's a reddish brown lobe on the top, and then underneath it's black. Also, you can use this foliose lichen to make purple dye, which is pretty fascinating, and as well that you can actually make dye out of this kind of brown looking, a purple dye of all, out of this brown looking flat paper thin lichen. Cumberland rock shield. This is super common here. If you go outside and look at any rock, I guarantee you $10, maybe $100, that you'll find this lichen on that rock, given if the rock is this size or bigger. So this lichen grows on exposed to partially shaded rocks. It's all over the stone walls here. It's all over our rock outcrops. You just find it everywhere. So it has, so again, it's this kind of pale yellowish green minty color looking. And it grows in this radiating pattern. So it circles out. It'll create this kind of circular object. Sometimes it'll get a little bit misshapen, or it'll overlap against other lichens, mosses, or even itself. I've seen multiple ones growing on top of one another. It's kind of flat against the substrate that it grows on, like a crustose, but the very edges of these lobes are not attached. So there is that space between the substrate and the lichen. The elegant sunburst lichen. This one's a gorgeous lichen. I've seen this one growing on brick in like stone walls and such. You can, because it needs the sun, it needs open sunlight. So we will not be able to find this tomorrow at Destruction Brook Woods, but if you go to any place that has open sunlight, you'll find it growing on rock, wood, and even bone. Can you imagine bone growing, lichen growing on bone? Especially orange one like this. And this sunburst lichen also grows in that circular radiating growth pattern as well. Common green shield. So this, like I said before, with the Cumberland rock shield, I will bet you $100 it'll be on a tree in your yard. This is everywhere. So most of the lichens that we'll see tomorrow is going to be the common green shield. It grows on barks of all kind, whether in the sun or partial shade. It goes from like a pale yellow green color to more of a dark, like a, not dark, but a vibrant green, not a vibrant, but like a darker green than what's depicted here, like a greener green, pale whitish yellow green. And so lichen grow really slowly. And this one here can grow pretty fast. It can grow 5 millimeters per year, which is pretty fast. Although 5 millimeters isn't that much, but for us, you and I, however, for lichen, it's pretty awesome. Which is why it's really important if you do walk anywhere, especially like the alpine zones, with the lichen growing on the ground there, it's really important not to step on it. I know there's some spots at Star of the Sea, at the ditch, the runoff ditch at Pascamanset Woods. When we work in there, there's lichen growing on the ground there. So it's always important to watch where you're stepping, because they do grow so slowly. So this one I'll test you a lot tomorrow. You'll all become experts on the common green shield by tomorrow morning.
Could we see the difference between that and the Cumberland Rock?
Yes. So the difference is this one grows on trees, and it's a
Okay.
little bit, is not quite as flat as the Cumberland Rock Shield. These lobes here kind of stick up about a little bit more. There's more space between the substrate and that lobe. Then the Cumberland Rock Shield also, in the middle, they're gonna create these brown discs, and those discs are where the spores get released. And again, the spores are the way how they reproduce. They produce spores, which will then get sent out into the world, and then they'll create offspring out of that. So if you see anything green looking, it's going to be on a tree. It's going to be 9 out of 10 times common green shield. If you see anything white or grayish looking on a tree, 9 out of 10 times it's going to be this bottle brush shield lichen. So this bottle brush shield lichen is a gray white color. It looked more like a dirty white to me when I was out in the field. This top left-hand corner or right-hand corner photo is, it shows the lobes are more detached from the substrate. However, when I was out yesterday, I found it more like this bottom photo. They're not quite as detached. They grow a little bit more flat against the substrate. But we will find this, it's everywhere. And again, it's a shield, it's another shield lichen. So it's gonna grow in that radiating pattern as well. You can't really tell because on these photos as well, because like the common green shield lichen, it will grow on top of itself in overlap other lichens as well. And this top right hand photo is a twig. So although it may be radiating, you can't tell because the surface is so small and it's just circling around the twig there. Powdered ruffle lichen. So this lichen looks a lot like either the bottle brush shield lichen or the common green shield lichen. However, it's going to be more detached from the substrate. It's only going to be attached to the substrate in this one small area, while the rest of it is kind of free out in the air. And it's called a ruffle lichen because the lobes themselves are ruffly. They're going to curl in as they get older. They curl in more or break off a little bit. So this powdered ruffle lichen is a foliose because again, it looks like a leaf. The lobes are very leafy looking. They grow on trees in the open, woods, and in swamps. Now for the shrub looking lichens, these fruticose ones. I got everyone's favorite. Most people, if they name a lichen, they're gonna name reindeer lichen. This lichen we can find at Star of the Sea, And the reason why we can find it at Star of the Sea is because Star of the Sea has these gravel pits, and reindeer lichen likes to grow on soil that is poor in nutrients. So that's going to be the sandy gravel soil. It'll grow on rock, heath, even mosses, and sometimes sandy, grassy areas in the full sun. And so to me, it looked like a very thin version of cauliflower as a kid. I don't know why, but I always thought it as like a super thin cauliflower. And the one thing that you can tell the difference between green reindeer lichen and other reindeer lichen is because it's green. There is a white reindeer lichen, and also reindeer lichen, they branch in multiple ways. While some other lichen that grow from the ground, they don't branch as much. So green reindeer lichen likes to branch in many, it'll branch multiple times. Oh, and a fascinating thing about reindeer lichen is that although it inhibits the growth of other lichens, it'll grow with other lichens of the same species. So they like to stick together. They like to stick with their family, but kick all the others out, which is pretty neat because a lot of the lichens that we have here, they tend to grow with one another. So this guy here is like more specific. It's like, hey, only other reindeer lichen can grow with me. You other guys get out of here. So it's kind of, if you remember me talking about garlic mustard, that garlic mustard again sends this chemical into the soil, which then inhibits the growth of other plants nearby. So this reindeer lichen does the same thing. It doesn't like the competition. Trumpet lichens are these little tiny kind of gray-green trumpet-looking lichens that grow on soil or rotting wood in the full sun or partial shade. They're very small, and I tried looking for some, but like I said earlier, lichen are dormant in the wintertime, and because they're dormant, they're not going to grow if something like steps on them, or if the wind or another tree knock them over, or crush them, I should say. So we'll keep our eyes out tomorrow, but I was not unfortunately able to find these. And so these trumpets, they look like trumpets that are looking up into the sky. And that cup that they have, when it rains, water will go into the cup. The lichen will release the spores, and then that water will then wash off and then disperse the spores at a different location, which I find is a pretty cool mechanism. Beard lichens, old man beard is a very popular lichen that I tend to talk about. It's the lichen that you see growing on all the dead and dying oak trees in the Southcoast here. So these look like little tiny trees. At least to me, they look like shrubby trees, and that are growing on tree branches on the tree. Yeah, they will grow on the tree trunk as well. They're very densely branched as well. Very common. It surprisingly has antibiotic properties, which I did not know about. It can also be used to treat diseases of the scalp as well. So DNRT, and I'm sure other organizations, we've gotten a lot of questions of asking whether or not this lichen is killing trees. It is not. So this lichen appears on the trees of dead and dying trees because it's a decomposer. So it's gonna, when the tree is vulnerable, that's when they're gonna come and take advantage of it. But most of these trees are already, they have enough resistance that they would be able to live, but because the trees have suffered several seasons of drought and then several seasons of defoliation from the moss, that is what ultimately ended up killing a lot of the trees. And this, like in the old man's beard, just took advantage of the situation, and that's why it's flourishing right now, and we find it everywhere. It's also really great to start fires with too. So a great survival tool is to get this lichen.
Good.
So this may be a review for some of you. My last two lichens. So this is the British soldier. So this is one of the most popular, besides the reindeer lichen, the other most popular lichen that people know about. And that's because it's very pollutant tolerant. So this lichen will actually grow in cities and such. So people are more exposed to it. While some of the other lichen, they don't like the pollutants as much. This one can survive it. So these are really tiny too. They're only going to be, I think, like 10 or so millimeters. Little tiny guys. And they have, to distinguish these in between the next guy, the trunks that they're on, they're multi-trunk. There's multi-branching going on, and there's multi-red caps for one of the trunks for these lichens. While the other guy, which I'll show you shortly, only has one trunk. This one has multiple. And British soldiers will grow on wood, soil, and at the bases of trees. Couldn't find anything yesterday, but with multiple eyes out, maybe tomorrow we'll be able to find some of these guys. And then here's another photo of it growing at the base of a tree. So as you can see in some of these photos, there's multiple trunks, multiple branches with multiple red caps. While the lipstick powderhorn only has one trunk, one branch, one red cap to it. And these trunks, these stalks, they're going to be a more grayish in color, while the British soldier is more, as you see here, it's more of a mint green. It's more green than this one, while the lipstick powderhorn is going to be more gray in color. The lipstick powderhorn, it grows on old wood or soil and occasionally on rocks. And again, too, it has like the bright red cap, but there's only going to be one cap per stalk, while the British soldier is going to have multiple caps per stalk, and the stalk is going to have many branches, and that's why. So that is the end of the presentation. Does anyone have any questions?
Leah, I have a two-part question, well, especially the fruticose that are more fibrous. What differentiates, and I've seen them in dead logs and things, that between that and that family of the lichen and the mushroom family, and they almost get pretty much very close in this in the fructose family. And also, are any of them edible, and maybe human and or do animals feed on any of these?
So lichens and mushrooms are very similar. They are both decomposers, but they also can coexist with one another. So I'm assuming they probably break down different things, or they help each other with breaking down. They may have a symbiotic relationship. that I would need to do more research on. And some of them, yes, are edible. I believe it's the reindeer lichen has been used. Let me just very quickly look. Has been used to eat. People have used to eat in it, but only as like a last resort, because a lot of these lichens are really hard for the body to break down, because it's all the fiber and such, the cellulose and such. So if you're lost in the woods and you need to eat something, you should boil this in water multiple times, get rid of that water, get new water, and then boil it again. And that'll help break it down and make it easier for you to digest. But it does cause a lot of stomach problems as well. I know which one. Was it the reindeer?
I take it these do not change throughout the year. They look the same 365 days a year?
So they remain dormant in the wintertime. So if lichen is pretty fragile, it's easy to crush and for either just like the wind moving it or a branch, animals or whatnot. So it could change a little bit in appearance throughout the year, but only during, but nothing dramatic.
Doesn't get brighter green or darker brown or.
Yeah. It's only like, say something got smushed, it'll regrow, but it'll regrow at a really slow rate.
So the red caps can be there in 100-degree weather and at 0 degrees.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, Leah, I have a question. You said that lichen grows on decaying wood. We have got
Yes.
lichen all over the railing on our deck.
Yes. So that is most likely going to be your common green shield lichen.
I think so, yeah.
And wait, where did I put it?
But like, should I scrape it off?
I mean, it's breaking down the wood. So if you want to slow that process down, then I would scrape it off. If you don't mind breaking down the wood, then yeah, you can keep it on. But
it's quite a lovely, but I thought, ugh.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to rebuild the deck.
So my great grandfather's gravestone and my great grandmother's gravestone has a lot of lichen on it, and it's like the only gravestone in the cemetery that has the lichen on it. But since I'm a naturalist, I'm going to keep it, and I'm hoping my great grandparents will be okay with that. I mean, I'm the one who lives closest to the gravestone, so if other family members are upset by it, then they can deal with it, but I'm not going to scrape it off. I'll plant flowers and stuff, but keep the lichen.
So I take it that aside from the British soldiers that are pollution tolerant, nothing about these show anything about the health or lack of health of a woodland, I presume. Is that right?
Not these. So there are some that do show. These, the ones that I picked out are the common ones. So they're going to be more pollution tolerant, while there are some species that are more intolerant. Where is it? I have one that I was going to include, but I couldn't find it at Destruction Brook Woods, so I gave up on it.
Way up there on the top.
It's the
Okay, look at us. We're on the top.
Yep.
We're backwards.
maybe it's not that one. So I have this book, Lichens in the northern woods or in the north woods. I highly recommend it. If you guys would like to buy a lichen ID book. So it has a picture of the lichen, the photos are really good compared to what I found online. And then it tells you a little bit of how to identify it. A lot of the other lichens, besides the ones that I told you today, are the more simple, easy, common ones to find, while the other ones that are going to be harder to identify, they tend to need a chemistry test to really identify it by species. Sometimes it's easier just to identify it as by the genus, like shield. That's like the genus common name for one of them, shield lichens. The ruffle lichens, another generic genus species name.
Why don't you put it in there, maybe?
Now, does it say anything about the health of the tree? Does it grow more on weak trees than trees that are pretty healthy?
Yes, yes. So their job is to break down trees. So they're going to grow on trees that already have a compromised immune system, basically. Any trees that have any weakness, whether it's from bark being exposed to it dying, and from other causes like our trees here. The oaks, unfortunately, a lot of them have died because of multiple summers of drought and multiple summers of defoliation. So that's why we're seeing a bunch of it. And to answer the earlier question, so there's this one lichen called the Eastern candle wax lichen, and this one here you find growing in old growth forest. So if you find it growing in your forest, you have a really healthy forest, and it's what foresters and ecologists use as to monitor the forest conditions.
What's the name of it again?
It's called the Eastern candle wax lichen.
Pack this up.
I know it's backwards, but
Eastern candle what?
Eastern candle wax.
Okay.
Good work, Maggie.
So this one looks a lot like the green shield lichens that you see growing on the trees in the wood and on the rocks. But this one grows on cedars and pines. It doesn't grow on hardwoods. And we may have it, we may not. I would probably need to do like a chemistry test to be able to tell the difference, because it looks so similar to the common green shield. Well, it looks similar, except for it doesn't grow in that radiating pattern. So the growth pattern is a little bit different than the common green shield.
It seems that you can find stuff like the whitewash on almost any walk or any hike.
Yeah.
Does that indicate that the trees could be healthier, or is it just that it can latch on to almost anything?
She would have taken care of it.
What
So
I got it first.
I mean, the answer that I'm going to give you is lichens are decomposers, so they're there to break down. So the tree must have a weak defense system. If it's able to break into the bark. I don't know. I would have to do more research to see. From what I've read casually, I haven't got a more complex answer besides if it breaks it's a decomposer, so it breaks things down. So
Good.
But you don't need to worry too much, because these things, like, they're small, so it's not going to do a whole lot of damage. They're slow growers, so they don't need to eat as fast as some other species need to do. So yeah, you don't, there's gonna be other factors that are gonna harm the tree before, or make it fall before the lichens get too far into it.
Super. Thank you.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you.
Any other questions?
Nope.
Okay, well, Ash and I wish you a good night, and I look forward to seeing everyone tomorrow. We may have snow on the ground, but don't worry. We'll still be able to find some lichens, especially the common green shield, the bottleneck one, and the powdery, fluffy powder dust and stuff like that.
So Brad and I aren't able to come.
Okay, well,
Don't
I'll send you a little PDF version of this of the lichen guide that you can print out at your own convenience and want to bring it around, or you can get this book. I'll give you guys the contact information for this book too if you want this field guide as well.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Great.
Okay.
All right, well, thank you guys.
Thanks, Leah.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Leah. See you tomorrow.
Okay,
Take care.
bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank
Thank you.
Okay, so
Oh, Mary, there you are.
oh, see
Hi.
you tomorrow, Susie.
What?
Will we see you tomorrow?
No, we can't go,
Oh,
but
oh,
we're still around. Bye.
bye.
Thanks, Leah.
You're welcome. Bye.
Bye.